everyone, and welcome to the Loose Framing Podcast. Today, I am one of your guest hosts. My name is Hilary Webber, and I'm here with my colleague,
Jessie Brock. Hello again.
And we have a fantastic episode for you today. We have with us Cranstan Cumberbatch, who, and I say this every time, they're a jack of all trades, but really, he's an actor, producer, writer, director. He's connected with a number of film festivals in the area. He's the director of the Tampa Bay Actors Guild. And we're also going to be collaborating with him for a very special Juneteenth event this year.
Yeah, so June 19th, 2024. Please check out tampatheatre.org for information about it. But Film Tampa Bay presents an evening with Cranstan Cumberbatch, and we are going to do short film block. We're going to have an actors panel. There's a lot of cool stuff happening on that day, so please check out Tampa Theatre's website for more.
Yeah, and I think after hearing from Cranstan today, you're definitely going to want to check out that event. So let's go ahead and hear from the man himself.
The following episode contains spoilers for Game of Thrones and Titanic.
And welcome back to the Loose Framing Podcast. Today we have with us Cranstan Cumberbatch, who is a director, actor, producer. You do a lot of different things in film and video. And
yeah, thankfully. Thankfully, I'm grateful for all of the many hats that I get to wear in this independent industry, and also being able to be a professional actor in it, it's cool too, and I get to live the best of all worlds, in front of and behind the camera. So I don't honestly think I'd have it any other way.
When you first started out in the industry, did you see yourself working in front of and behind the camera?
No, I did not. I actually saw myself being in front of the camera first, and when I got that opportunity, I loved it. And then due to an onset accident that I had on the show that I was on when I was 10, the show was called This Side Up. It was on Channel 10. And I went from being it was kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club back in the day.
Okay.
And kind of went from being like a kid in the audience to working my way up to being the actual show host of the show itself.
Wow.
And I just remember, like it was yesterday, the show being called This Side Up had a big box crate behind me. I said this, side up, which was a top of a box crate from the shipping yard. And so that was my backdrop, for the show. And I just remember we taped on Tuesdays, and the producer was counting me in from the 5 down to the silent 1 count. And when she got to the silent 1, that sign fell on my head. So and it was being taped. Yeah, it was being taped. And so of course, thankfully it wasn't live. But they brought my parents in and they took us back into the production room to actually show my parents what happened so they could see it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And from where I was hurting from, being hit in the head with this sign, because you have to imagine it. I got to tell the story real quick.
Of course, that's why we're
storyteller.
here. Yeah,
so
story
I
time.
got to give you the picture. So
set the scene.
Yeah, set the scene. So we were off camera talking about, being tall and short and all that good stuff. So I'm short. So imagine me being shorter than I am now. Little 10-year-old kid in a director's chair, feet dangling, just kicking away. Mm-hmm, and you know how on shows, when they're coming back from commercial, they show you inside the studio. So you see the different cameras moving and people doing different things and getting you ready to, go. So you see all that stuff happening in this clip. And so sitting there dangling. So when this sign hits me on top of my head, it's the whole reflex thing. So it hits me on top of my head, my little legs kick out, I fall out the chair. So of course they bring us back to the production room. And as soon as I walk in that production room, my whole world lit up. I mean,
really?
like from the little knot I had on my head,
Oh.
it was like it wasn't there anymore. I mean, all the pain went away when I saw the actual production room. I saw the producers. I heard the one lady saying, go to camera 2, and it was a totally different show that they were working on, but you got to see all these things you saw on television in real life. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. This is the life.
You were 10 years old when that happened?
I was 10 when that happened.
So, I mean, what an impression, what a formidable age to have that realization. Did you right away, were you asking mom and dad, like, how do I get into behind the scenes? How do I get into production? Or
No, I was too busy trying to keep them from suing Channel 10.
Yes, I'm sure they were livid.
Yes.
Understandably.
And the funny story with that, and I know this is not the main topic that we're talking about today, but it's always a fun thing that I like to tell people, because it just shows that when something's in your line of passion, it always finds a way of coming back to you, And so with that, they promised my parents that if I continued to finish out the show, that they would edit that part and you would never see that on television. And so we taped on Tuesday, it aired on Saturday. And so imagine it's Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, 7 a.m., and house full of people. We very religious. So, we had a lot of people from church over to our house. A lot of kids from the neighborhood was over at our house and things of that nature. And so here it is, show's on, and I'm doing great. Everybody's like just, applauding and, really commending me on how good of a job I'm doing hosting this show.
Yeah.
And of course, I got my brothers and other friends in the neighborhood who are ragging on me on little things, as kids do.
Right, right.
But still, you could tell they were like really admiring what was happening. So needless to say, all of a sudden I see the inside of that studio and the scene where the sign fell on my head. So coming back from commercial break, I see everything. Me sitting in the chair, little legs dangling, and I see the producer counting from the 5 down to the silent 1, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, please, 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 please don't show it. And as soon as that lady got to that silent 1 count, you see the sign go, boom.
What?
You see it hit me on the top of my head and my little legs fly up, and then it goes to a close-up of me. So when they edited it, they didn't edit it enough. And so you still saw the sign hit me in the head. And when I tell you, that was one of the most embarrassing moments of life ever. The whole house erupted. I'm talking grown-ups trying not to laugh. You just see them holding it like. And the kids, of course, they're not holding nothing. They're running all around the house, screaming, laughing, pointing, and my brothers, to this day, every now and then, they still bring that up. Remember when he was 10 and got hit in the head? And so
you're like, get some fresh material, guys.
Yes, please get some fresh one. But it was just so monumental and impactful.
Yeah.
And I just remember my parents, they started laughing at first, but then when they realized that, wait a minute, they said that wasn't going to show. So that's when they were like, okay, it's
that's
time.
Not okay.
Yeah. So I watched a lot of TV back in the day, like a lot of lawyer shows and things of that nature. And a lot of those shows, when you made a decision to like sue a major company or something to that effect, somehow miraculously something happened to somebody in the house. Either somebody came up missing or the dog ends up dead on the doorstep. Some little warning message to say, don't pursue this any further.
Yeah.
And so from watching a lot of those shows and things of that nature, I was real fearful, for everybody. My family, we had a dog named Poncho. I loved Poncho. I didn't want nothing to happen to Poncho. So I'm like really fearful. So I'm begging my parents, please don't sue. Please, 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 please. So my mom gave me the ultimatum of either you quit the show or we sue the channel. So I ended up quitting the show. But in quitting the show, I then went to sports and excelled in sports, things of that nature. But still in church, I still did all of the performing arts things, all those things that I saw, that I was doing on television, I did off television. And so it was just something that never left. And then when the opportunity came again later in life for me to be, in front of the camera. It came way later, but that is what really kind of led me into getting into acting and things of that nature. So I took my talents to stage, and from stage, that I do music as well. So through that, music is what actually led me to getting onto camera. And so many long stories to that track and journey, but that's not what we're all here to talk about.
That's absolutely what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about the music and how did you go from kind of being dormant in the industry to getting involved again? What initiated that, and how is the music connected to it?
So one of the main things that initiated that was I was trying to do a favor for a friend, and there was a girl that he liked that was an actress. And she we were trying to strategize a way for him to get closer to her. And so in my being
love
a
the
good
romance.
friend, yeah. I was a true heavy romantic back then.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out a way to get close to her, it was like, okay, well, how about we, do something by way of common interest, meet her where she's at. And so we found out that she was auditioning for this musical. And I was like, ooh, if you get in this musical, that means you're going to be in rehearsals with her, and for this musical, they were going to be rehearsing for like a couple of months. So I'm like, 2 months of every day being with, I got to stop banging, but 2 months of every day, being in rehearsals with her. And then you got the show itself, which runs for a couple of months itself.
Yeah.
So this is giving you plenty of time to be around her, all this stuff. So he was like, all right, but I'm afraid to just audition by myself. So I agreed to audition with him. And he was auditioning for a main role because she was to be the lead role opposite of her. Okay. And I opted to audition just to be in the ensemble. Just so that I could be there to kind of help, be that friend, the guy to nurture and watch from the sidelines and coach.
Yep.
And you got to get all of the tea.
Yeah. And so
coaching is good game.
Yeah. And it turned out that we went to the audition, and there was a part that the lead had to sing. And he was an okay singer, but, it wasn't enough to carry the weight of that lead role. Mm-hmm. And so I'm auditioning in the ensemble part, and the musical director asked me to, sing a song. And at the time, I was okay at reading sheet music, but I wasn't all the way that good at reading sheet music. And the only thing they did was hand me the sheet music. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. This is hieroglyphics to me at the time. And so he said, it goes like this. And he just played it for me. And from him playing it, I was able to translate what the notes were doing. And so I sang it. And so
all by ear?
Yeah, all by ear.
Wow.
And so, of course, this is growing up in church, that helps a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, needless to say, he loved my voice, things of that nature. And what ended up happening was he suggested that I be the lead.
Oh, man.
So
plot twist.
Yes, plot twist. And so I ended up becoming the lead of this musical, and it was my first musical. I never thought that I would be involved in a musical in this capacity.
What musical was it again?
It was The Pajama Game.
Okay.
And from there, was it Pajama Game? No, it was not The Pajama Game. That was the second musical that I did. I can't go that far back right now.
That's okay. I'm
That's
sorry.
That's all right. We'll put it in the comments or something if I remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my being in this lead role, we had to refocus our strategy on how to get this girl with me being in the lead. Mm-hmm. And and
now you've got all that FaceTime with her.
And so so basically I utilized my time just really trying to pitch for him, like saying, he really likes you.
Wow.
And just really using that time, that I got just to, really try and help him out. And it didn't work.
Oh.
Yeah, it didn't work. As much as I tried.
Don't tell me she fell in love with you.
She did not.
I was looking for the wedding ring.
She did not. I mean, she likes me a lot. You know, she thought I was real cool. I don't know. And I've kind of always been that way. When I'm in a lead work capacity with someone, there's just certain filters that just turn off.
Yeah.
And that lead role romance kind of doesn't always happen.
Well, you're clearly a natural born leader, and I'm sure that that's led you to success in sports, but also filmmaking. And having that much charisma, you had like the it factor at 10 years old, I'm sure, just from you telling the story and visualizing it. I mean, how does that come into play when you're fostering these relationships in our community, in independent filmmaking and in film festivals? Film festivals, that's originally why we met. You were making those connections. You are based out of St. Pete, but you came over here, and we're fostering new connections in Tampa. But we just recently attended the Black Art and Film Festival, and you also hosted the Sunshine City Film Festival, all within 2 film festivals in the same month, which is wild to me. But can you just talk to us a little bit about that, about curating the programming and getting the panels together and just really connecting with the independent filmmaker scene?
Yeah. So through my journey in becoming a professional actor and things of that nature, and through my musical journey, I got the opportunity to like really meet a lot of people, and not just any people, but more of the inside people, the more I would say common folks. Us common folks. And I really got to really hear the voice of the community, and a lot of people saying, you know, they wish they had more opportunities, you know, to go further and deeper in this industry and meet more like-minded individuals who want to, you know, be a part of this and not have to leave. One of the main things that was happening was because we did not have a market and or industry here that was, you know, active and flourishing, the drive was to leave. You know, you had to go to New York, California, you know, now Atlanta, you know, things of that nature, Chicago, Philly. You had to go to these other states where they had a more active community in this in order to, you know, get any experience in doing it. And there weren't very many training platforms, you know, down here to kind of teach you the ropes on even the basics on getting your headshots, the importance of, you know, having a resume, you know, how do you even start, you know, by doing community type things and all that good stuff. And so me hearing the voice of the people, I just decided to take my talents and do something about it. And, you know, through grace of God, things of that nature, I got lined up with some of the right people that also were in line with that. I have to give a big, huge shout out to one of my business partners, Jabbar Edmond, who we partnered here and actually came up with the programming for the festivals that we do now. Thankfully, we met Richard Michael Stefanik, who was the main founder of the Sunshine City Film Festival, who actually got us started in the festivals circuit to even begin with. And we did a film called Art in the City. And our goal was to, you know, we made a feature-length film. We made it in our city, you know, where we were born and raised, things of that nature. And we really wanted to highlight it and showcase it like all of the other big movies that gets released, you know. So you go to the movie theater, you have your 6 or 8 different show times throughout the day, you know, where you show your film. And we wanted to do it big like that. And through some talking about it and through Richard's mentorship, he suggested that we actually, instead of doing the movie and showing it like 6 different times in a day, why don't you get some other shorter films and then make your film the main event, you know, and kind of like a music concert where you have opening acts and then you have the main person you wanted to see, you know, as the headliner. And so Jabbar jumped in on that concept really hard as well, and they convinced me, you know, to go that route. And so that's kind of how the Sunshine City Film Festival started. And that festival grew from just being a normal 4-day festival to now being a 10-day festival. And it went from being just one that supported just the work of the community in the Tampa Bay area to now being an international film festival, to where we're now getting films from all over the world coming in to the festival.
And how many years has that been going on?
8.
8 years,
so
and you've grown that
years.
much. That's wild.
And it just goes to show, you know, just the community that's out here and that's hungry to be involved in this industry. And right now, the independent market has a really strong lane to be able to really get some work out there and really garner the people to help grow it even further. And so it's the same with the Black Art and Film Festival. Big shouts out to Carla Bristol, who was the founder of that festival. And it started off as just the Black Art Festival. And she wanted to grow that to include film as well, because film wasn't regarded as an art form. It was just regarded as just that, you're just making a movie, but that was not considered art, the creating, the piecing together of a story and having it show the way that it does, was not taken serious as a form of art. But as more people, looked at it and looked into the main veins of it, saw that, yes, it is an art form. You are creating something from start to finish. You are making something come to life.
Yeah.
And so
visually.
Yes, visually. Yes. Yes. Just like a painter, who paints a picture on a canvas, it's the same exact thing.
There's choices in color and lighting and all of that.
All of that. So and you're just making it move. And so with that comes the birth of the Black Art and Film Festival. She brings Jabbar and I in on that. And from there, we grew that festival from a 2-day festival to now a 4-day festival. We were looking to extend it out a couple of days more, but that's a lot of work when you go from January to February and they're pretty much back to back.
Yes,
So it takes a really strong team to be able to muscle that. And thankfully we do have a really strong team that supports us in muscling that. Big shouts out to Rich Gill, Tiffany Gill, Debbie Garrett. I know I'm going to forget some people, but those are some of the main core. Monet, Sabrielle, Mama Blue. I mean, there's a lot of, they know who they are. And I mean, I can continue to name, but maybe I'll do it in the comments later when this comes out. but thankfully, again, we have a strong community of people that are interested in this work, that want to be involved in many different capacities. And it's just a matter of getting the word out there and giving them outlets to be able to come together to know that, hey, this does exist here. And through these festivals, we've been able to create the Tampa Bay Actors Guild, which has allowed us to be able to network and partner people. And I call it the grocery store of the industry, because people have been able to go to the Actors Guild or come to these festivals and really come with a idea or sitting on something that they've been needing to get finished and finding those exact connections to help them get that work done.
Matchmaking.
Matchmaking. Yes. So
it all ties back to romance, right?
It does. So that's a big key. And I love romance. I've been that guy since a kid. I don't. I'm passionate, and maybe because I'm between two signs. My birthday's in September, and it's the 22nd. So you got two numbers that's already kind of balanced. And I'm a Virgo / Libra.
Yeah, I was gonna say, spoken like a true Libra, all about the balance.
So and Virgos are very passionate about the things that they're involved in. So I'm passionately balanced, and so the things that I involve myself in, I'm truly all about that.
Love
that. And I'm a middle person all the way, middle child. I'm between, siblings. And so me discovering that about myself has really helped me in my walk and my journey. It's helped in how we program our things for our different events and things of that nature. They're all passionately balanced. And when I hear the voice of the community and I hear what's really being asked for, I see that we have the way to provide that. And through connecting different partners and entities, it really helps for these things to thrive and be what they need to be, to allow people to feel comfortable and like, okay, I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
I'm not in a bad place to where I feel I have to rush and get out of here right now. So thanks to Film Tampa Bay, thanks to the St. Pete Clearwater Film Commission, thanks to the Arts Alliance, and the different industries and entities that have started to now pour in, but it's a matter of us getting out there and getting to know each other, and taking that leap of faith to say, hey, I'm doing this over here, can you please, help support and getting that support. And it's really making a difference in our community. I've truly been able to see people live happier versions of their lives because they've been able to tap into that artistic source inside of them that, needs to come out, but they never had an outlet. It's been sequestered, or held back because they never thought that there was any place here that existed for them to be able to be any part of this industry. And to now see that, they went from not even being on camera to now being in front of and behind the camera. And then when you get them off of that, to now be able to host film festivals, to now be able to usher other people in welcoming them to their city to be a part of film festivals and be a part of this community and learn more and network and all that good stuff. It's like a true blessing. And so, like I said, this is just to see people be able to open up. I've seen people go from having ideas of writing movies, that years and years and years and years and years of sitting on and wishing that one day I'm going to get to New York or get to Hollywood and put it in somebody's hand and they're going to make this movie for me, and then watching that dream die to now they are writers, they are directors, their films and short films and series have been entered into festivals and they've won. And to see that, them go from not being anything to now really being something. And so we really have a great thing here, and we live in paradise on top of that, so being able to live here and have great weather year round, to have the city, all of our cities, in this tri-region area, building up to a capacity to where it can look like anywhere,
That's one of our favorite things to say when we're marketing our locations is that you really can make Tampa or St. Pete or Tampa Bay region look like anywhere in the world.
Anywhere.
But we are evergreen 24/7.
There you go.
go.
I mean, and for us as independents, right now is the perfect time for us to really strike, really make our mark, and take advantage of the opportunities that we have here before we do get a film tax incentive back here, and you start getting a lot of the more commercial films coming here, which will be great. It really is not a bad thing. It's something that, will really help boost the economy that much more. It really would help the city flourish that much more. It'll bring out more artistry. But for those of us right now who've been trying to create a lane, who've been trying to really get our foot in the door and things of that nature, this right now, if we strike now, it'll really help us stand out when those time frames come, and we'll be able to really employ a lot of people in the work versus a lot of people getting employed that don't live here. Because if you give them a plethora of, you can pick from right here versus we don't know where to go, you're going to go with what you know. So you're going to bring all crew and all, but if there's a flourishing industry down here, and a plethora to pick from, then you're going to be like, okay, well, let's save a lot of this money from having people travel, and let's pick from local and, and get the same amount of work done. And you may bring one or two A-listers or B-listers to be the names of, your project, but then you're able to make some A-listers and B-listers in the up-and-coming routes from the people you're able to get from here in the local area. So
that's one of the big drivers of marketing crew members, doing spotlights on them, focusing on what they have been accomplishing and their personal growth, and Loose Framing podcasts, interviewing filmmakers like yourself, because there's this common misconception that Tampa doesn't have crew.
Right.
And we're trying to be like, look, here they are.
Yeah, it's here. It's
here. You can make your stuff happen here with locals working on your sets.
Right.
So
and,
it's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah. And I've been on these sets, I mean, I've been that person that's not afraid to do any part of this industry, from being a PA to being a gaffer to, being the lead actor to being extra. I've done all parts of it. And in being in these sets and things of that nature, you really get to see that we're really not far from what Hollywood's doing, like at all. It's just they're working with some bigger equipment, and that's really the separation. You may have some people with a little bit more years of experience, but when it comes down to the work itself, same things we're doing as independents and getting this story made is the same thing they're doing, on these Hollywood sets in order to get the story made. They just got more funding and more people to help, and in the independent world, we have to rely on smaller teams, to do mighty things, but we're doing it. We really are doing it. And what these festivals and us getting to know each other and being listed on the film commission sites and things of that nature, it's allowing for more people to attract the quality people to help the work get better, and that's the whole goal, to attract the right people to help you, move your work to a place to where it can really be respected, for being viable work. And now that we got these streaming platforms and things of that nature that you're now able to get your work on, now is the time. And so I'm seeing a lot of filmmakers, especially in the local area, get a lot of their work on Tubi. A lot of their work is doing really well, even on YouTube. I have a few friends that's been able to get some things on Netflix. I'm in several Netflix movies, that I never thought that I would. Wow, I'm on Netflix. Wow, I'm on Amazon Prime,
I'm on demand.
Right, I am on demand. I like that. Yes, I'm on demand. I got to start using that. I'm going to put that in my profile. I'm on demand.
Believe it or not, YouTube gets a lot of watchers.
Yeah.
Like we had a show called Meet My Abuela that was filmed with our visitor center. And it's basically a reality show where it's Spanish language. Half of it is Spanish language and half of it is in English. But they have to meet the abuela or the grandmother in order to get the approval that they're allowed to date. But they got great numbers by just distributing on YouTube and YouTube TV. So there's a lot to be said for YouTube.
Yeah. It's a lot to be said, and even so much so to where filmmakers and producers and just people in general are able to now get their own streaming channels through Roku and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
so now you got independents that's able to create their own platforms, and get those streaming outlets monetized, in great ways to where now the content that you're making, you don't have to, rush to try and get on Netflix or anything like that. You have your own channel to where you now can do the marketing to send people to that. And now you build your own lane, and you're able to create your own shows, become TV producers of your own, especially when you get your own outlet to create your own content.
I feel like there's a real market for that. I feel like people are wanting more customized experiences and more authentic storytelling. So there's definitely, for the independent film scene, I feel like that hits the mark.
It does. And there are so many independents out there to where if it ever came together, it really will change the market. And that's one of the fears. It is inspiring. It is inspiring, especially if you're on the indie side. It's fearful on the commercial side because of what it takes away from the whole Hollywood effect. But at the same time, though, what it has inspired is inspired people to come out of their shells, to tell their stories, to tell different types of stories and come from different vantage points, because a lot of our stories, as we found through the pandemic, is very surface level. And I don't know for you guys, but I went through a lot of content that I was not able to watch because of being so busy and things of that nature, to where when everything slowed down, we burned through it like nothing. And so much so to where we ended up having to go back to old shows
Yeah.
just to, still be entertained. And then once you got through going through those old shows, now you're like looking for something else. So now you're just scavenging, you're scouring to find something new of interest that's going to spark you the same way the other shows did. And then that opened the door for the independent world. That's how channels like Tubi and, even YouTube has an even stronger platform now because of the pandemic and the independent work that was discovered. We got to discover a lot of the Asian shows, which is like really high ranking right now in Netflix and things of that nature, but we got to discover that because we ran through all of our stuff. So I was like, well, what else is out there? So we discovered Asian films, Asian work. We discovered more work from the UK. We discovered Nigerian work and all these different shows. And what we also got to learn through watching through the subtitles and things of that nature is a lot of their plot points. A lot of their plot points don't come from the same areas, but they take different vantage points and it just digs you into the story that much more to where you're like, wow, I would have never thought to tell this story that way or tell the story from this person's point of view, and see how this person's point of view affects this whole thing, and then you bring in other characters, and you get them involved, and it's like no question as to how they have like 20 seasons of a story. And I'm 20 seasons, like, geez, how long was this running? Well, I mean, was this from when they were kids to adults, but when you have story plot lines that can go forever, and again, coming from so many different vantage points, it really allows for a good story to get told because now when focus is shift to a different character, you now follow the lifeline of this character. Yeah. And then it all falls back to the main overall picture, or the main storyline. And you see all these things feed in. It really is what engages us in what I call true to life experiences, because we love drama. And the more you know about a person, the more you get pulled into the overall big picture. And when you see the different connecting points, then it really, keeps you engaged with that story. And now you want to know more. Right. So,
the more personal it feels, the more you can kind of relate and take away from what you want from that story. Yeah. I think it was Barry Jenkins said, if you try to make a movie for everyone, you're going to end up making a movie for no one.
Right.
Yeah. Because, you have to be in touch with your voice and you have to stand behind it and really be honest with your storytelling. Do you have any tips or tricks on what makes a great story? I was researching Cranstan Cumberbatch and your TED Talk, and St. Pete came up, and I believe the title of it was The Ending is the Beginning. And it was really, not to like rehash it here, if you are interested in story writing, definitely check out that video because it is very captivating. But do you have anything that you'd like to share here about maybe some endings of shows that you hated or what they could have done better, or something that you pull from your own toolbox about creating good characters?
There's no true definite or definitive answer to that. Yeah. When you come to an end of something, you personally have to be satisfied on where you're leaving things. First. One of the saving graces for me is that I'm doing a lot of series right now, and series can continue for however long you want to continue that series. So there's never really a true end. So you figuring out what's going to be my cliffhanger, that's your end game when it comes to doing series. When it comes to movies itself, like feature lengths or shorts, you really have to decide whether or not you want this ending to be happy or you want this ending to be sad.
What's that feeling you're leaving people with?
Yeah.
And then have all questions been answered, based on the story that you're telling. Because that's what leads us through the story of the different questions that's happening in these life points, in these moments of life that's happening with these individuals. We're looking for the answers to the questions that they're creating for us as to what's the resolve to this issue. You know, if it's two people trying to hook up and there's all these different distractions, happening, what's going to be the thing that removes all these distractions, or will there be anything to remove all the distractions to where these two can finally come together? And then if they do come together, how long will they be together? Are we going to show that this whole, throughout this feature to show, how they end up? Or are we going to show that, yeah, they almost were there, but then this thing, messed it up. But then their true love really showed up, and they ended up going happily ever after with that person.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the difference between Jim and Pam in The Office versus like Nick Miller and Jessica Day and New Girl, where they kind of did that too soon.
Right.
It was like season 2, they're together. Where do you go from here? And then they had to create conflict around it. So that's a great point.
So, so you have to make these decisions. And, and to be honest with you, there have been shows to where they have done that. They've gotten those people together like super early, and they've been able to carry it on, without even having to create a whole bunch of, chaos around them for you to still be, engaged in that story.
Cheers, Sam and Diane.
There you
like
go.
Always the sort of back and forth and tension the entire length of the time she was on the show.
Yeah. And I mean, guess what? We were engaged the whole time, and through that relationship, it allowed the other characters to even be spotlighted even more, to where we got to really know them around this general, relationship that's happening inside this bar, Norm, right? And Cliff, and, all the other characters, that came to this bar. We really got to see them shine through the heights and depths of this relationship. Another show that I can say really got me to where, like you said, I thought it was going to be a cliff dive into nothing after this. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
After the first season, they chopped the head of Ned off. And sorry if this is a spoiler alert for those of you who never saw Game of Thrones. Shame on you if you haven't. I mean, this is 8 years ago.
It's time, guys.
It's time. Please stop holding off. Watch it. But you at least know Ned dies. So,
winter has come and gone, guys.
Winter is come and gone. But when I saw, that they had really built up this opening to the storyline, the plot line, to be around the Stark family and Ned being the main, guy, and real close to the king and things of that nature, you're not thinking Ned's gonna die, even though his head's on the chopping block. You're like, they're not gonna do it. Somebody's gonna come save the day. There's gonna be a mysterious arrow from somewhere that kills the guy with the axe or whatever. And no, Ned's head falls in the little basket, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Oh man, this show's done. And I didn't even want to watch the second season because I was like, this is gonna be stupid. Where do you go from here? You killed the main guy. And here we are 8 seasons later, and we were just as drawn in to where we forgot about poor Ned, because there was so much drama with just the kids themselves.
All the drama
survive,
he left behind.
Right. Post daddy being, killed.
Yeah.
How do we, survive this? And the red wedding and all that good stuff. I mean, you had all those things that, man, great story writing. And so being able to think outside of the box is huge too, in the stories that we're telling, and creating good endings, I believe really starts with making sure you've answered all of the questions that you're building throughout your storyline. And then in your end, making that solid decision on whether or not you want it to end happy or do you want it to end sad. In today's complicated world, that we try to not do is we try to not make it so easy to guess on how the ending's going to be.
Yeah.
Because if you can figure it out, then you're going to lose interest pretty early. If you could throw some, what's the word I'm looking for? Yes, curveballs, but there's another technical word that we use. Plot shifts, plot twists. There we go.
Okay,
there we go.
twist.
Plot twists. It was so simple yet so hard. Plot twists. You throw in those plot twists that kind of, gives us those curveballs that extends us getting to that ending. And to be honest with you, using the word, us being a more complicated society right now, it is really hard to come up with a strong ending to where you can walk out being satisfied, or the majority of the audience being able to walk out being satisfied with what happened, because we get drawn into so many other elements, so many other characters, and even though you like the main characters, you may relate to another character in the storyline. And now, because you relate to them more, because they're telling more of your life story,
right,
and helping to answer some questions or something that makes you feel better about what you're going through in life, you kind of want to know a little bit more about them. And what ends up happening is you get these spinoffs.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking, like Better Call Saul. Yeah. Not that he was telling my life story. But I'm just thinking of spinoffs.
Yeah, but that's what happens. You end up getting those types of things needing to happen for people to feel satisfied with, this whole series. And now it just extends the life of the entire storyline. Let's look at the Avengers, and how Marvel has been able to craft all these individual superhero stories and then bring them into one big one for the Avengers. And then all of the things that have been happening in these storylines lead to this climactic moment. And then the storylines branch back off to after this climactic moment happens, now we follow them again to see, all right, now this is post this, where are you now? And so
are you a fan of those movies? The Avengers? You are?
I am.
Does it ever get to a point where it's just too much of the cinematic universe? Is there ever a point where you're like, or are you enthralled the entire time?
So it's one of those catch-22 type of deals, because when you grow up, reading the comic books, and you grow up like really following the storylines, and you're arguing on the playground about who's stronger and all that good stuff. You have a certain vision of the story in your head, in your imagination. And then to see it played out in real life, you're now banking that against the stories you've seen in your head, the cartoons you've watched as a kid and all that good stuff. And now when they've changed some things, it feels different, so it's like you got to readjust yourself to accept the change. For those who are brand new to it, it's a totally different experience, to where, this is like, oh, wow, this is so cool. I never knew about this and that. And, you're able to follow these character storylines, just like a real soap opera. And you're really engaged. And then you have those who are like just totally confused by it all. And they're like, I have zero idea of what's happening here. But they got some cool effects. It looks cool. I like the colors.
Yeah.
I took my dad to see the Avengers, and he was like, it was okay, but they talked like comic book characters, and I was like, I wonder why.
That's
and
the
that's
whole
supposed
thing.
to. Yes, they're from comic books. So once I settled into the idea that they're pulling a lot of the major plots of these stories from the comic books and things of that nature, and they're adapting them to what makes sense now, I've accepted that. Where I'm having a hard part where it's starting to spiral off from me is this whole multiverse thing. When you start diving into that type of things, to where you got different versions of this same character existing in different, and the fact that it does exist, like it's out there in the comic books. When you get into like the 2312th volume, you learn about these things. But growing up, they gave you so much, and that's what you held on to, and that's the stories you want to see. Those are the stories that but you have the younger generations that made it to that 2312th, version of the comic book, and they know these storylines, and it's like, oh, okay. And they're totally all into that. So, creating for the target audience that's coming of age is also important in filmmaking as well. And so I get it. I do get it. And because I'm an action guy and I like those types of things, I'm going to go watch it and support it. Some of it confused, but thank God for the ability to research some things, that you're questioning. So
but at least the people talking too, right? You get all the Reddit chat boards, and, complaining or giving your idea, it gives people something to talk about.
Yes, it does. It creates conversation. And that's another good thing about good storylines and a lot of these movies with these difficult endings that's kind of hard for us to settle on accepting. It creates conversation, and for us to be talking about these things, it really helps those of us who are listening, especially as filmmakers, writers, and producers. It helps us to really now know where the vein of people's minds are in the newer stories that we're trying to tell and create and things of that nature. And it gives us a new throughway, to be able to now share more impactful stories that people now want to watch and see. And, you just got a lot of different ones that are out there from all different types of genres that are really capturing people and having them glued, to their television or streaming apps or whatever you're watching these things on. It has them really glued because you're hitting my veins. You're hitting where I am in life right now, or you're taking me away from where I am in life right now. Right.
Yeah.
And that's another beautiful thing about this whole entertainment industry, the ability to be able to escape from your reality through the life of someone else, and being able to tell those stories. And that's one of the cool things I love about being able to be on both sides of the camera, is that I get to escape into someone else. Not that I got such a bad life. I got a nice one, thank you, God. But being able to, give myself a break, become another character.
But that's the magic of the movies, right?
Yeah,
that was
is.
the original allure, was to escape into these other realities and characters and kind of see yourself in their shoes.
Yeah. And then be on the other side of actually now piecing that story together, and seeing it come to life. And now when you hit play and just watch it play all the way through, it's like, wow, I did that. Wow.
You recently shared a few episodes of your new show, Nothing Else Matters. Was that audience engagement helpful in figuring out those last few episodes that you're working on?
Yes, very much so. Again, sparking communication, conversation, getting people, picking up on certain things, on certain characters. It tells you what traits they're noticing, and it allows them to see, some direction as to where the story is going. And a lot of what's happening right now in Hollywood is that a lot of these series, and I'm not trying to spoil or give away too much of anything, but a lot of these series are actually using comments, that are being made on these episodes and things of that nature, to really get a pulse and vein as to what the audience is feeling. And they're starting to write to that, and for where a lot of these episodes are already written out, things of that nature, there's been a lot of characters that have died that have been brought back because of how the audience has been really relating to this character and feeling that it's not time for them to go. And there's a number of shows. Jon Snow came back, right, in Game of Thrones, and he was gone. I don't ever remember them saying that it was ever meant for him to not come back, but they brought Jon Snow back. There's a number of different stories like that, to where different characters have come back that died, and because the audience spoke, shared their comments, things of that nature, that writer's room said, all right, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we make sense of this person not being here. How do we bring them back? And it makes sense. And, and that's another challenge to writing, as well. You got to be open to shifting, to meet the needs of your audience if you're trying to keep them, because a lot of it will shift them to a totally different,
You got to read the room.
Yeah, you got
you know,
to
if you're trying to sell it and get
room.
people to watch your movie, you got to know who's watching it.
You got to know your target audience and be secure in that. And for like romantic comedy series right now, they're not as big as they used to be, you know, back in like the early 90s, early 2000s, things of that nature. You got some that are still, you know, really high ranking out there, but it's a mid-grade type thing. You know, you don't have too many people that's into a lot of romantic stories, especially this millennial generation. They are not into, you know, totally the romantic story. They're into it some, but they're more into the
true crime.
Right. The grind.
If the romantic
of it.
is like a murder mystery.
Yes, I'm into it. If the romance is happening in a horror film, you know, you know, the two are running from this monster, you know, and will they stay alive? Will he save her? Will he, you know, die like my guy did in Titanic when he's hanging on Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
Yeah. Spoilers.
You spoiling everything.
I didn't see the Titanic.
I have no idea what happens at the end of that story.
It's not all over the internet or
anything.
anything.
Look, 30 years later, he dies. The boat sinks, he dies.
It sinks? What?
The whole thing goes down.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to talk about your projects that you're working on right now. We were talking a little bit offline. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of those that are coming up that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so we're working on again completing our full season of Nothing Else Matters, that romantic comedy series. We're also working on we have a secret agent series that's feature length called Agent X, and that series has done really, really well. We've been able to really really open up the playing field of the indie market here in the local area through the success of that film. It's one of St. Petersburg's most largest attended local film to ever be made in the city of St. Pete. The series itself, I play Agent X. And I get to live out a lot of my James Bond fantasies, you know, through that. Thank you, Jabbar Edmond, who's the brainchild between of that series. So we're looking to finish that out. So we did the first series, which is Agent X, How Far is Too Far. We got to do the second one, which we just completed in 2022. 2019 was Agent X 1. 2022 was Agent X 2. We got to film that during the pandemic, and that was and that's called AX2 Quarantine. And we really got to make some headway and up our production value in that one, primarily because most of the world was still shut down, especially out on the West Coast. So, you know, we got to film in Las Vegas, Arizona. We got to shoot in New York, got some scenes in Canada, things of that nature. And we were able to travel like really cheap to be able to capture scenes in these different locations, and not even on purpose. We were in these cities for total different reasons, but we just maximized the being there, you know, for parts of this film. And you kind of got to be forward thinking like that as well, especially as an independent filmmaker. You have to be able to seize the moment and be proactive in your pursuits, especially if you have opportunities to be in places that you would not normally get the chance to go to on the regular to capture these scenes. So to have authentic scenes of New York, authentic scenes of Canada, and not have to get pulled from either someone else's footage or, you know, other means to establish that you're in these cities was a really cool thing for us to be able to do. And so now we're on Agent X3, artificial intelligence, and we started filming that late October of last year. And of course, with the film festivals happening in January and February, we had to pause our production for the sake of manning those festivals. But now we're getting ready to resume back filming here next month, and looking to have a huge January release of Agent X3, and then
that's exciting.
Yeah. And in the meantime of that, we also have Juneteenth that's coming up, and we're looking to have some good work ready for that
Yeah. So my favorite part about our connection or your connection with our office is that we're able to partner and bring a little bit of the community that you have built in St. Pete over to Tampa to introduce them to a new market and hopefully bring some new people over from Tampa too to see your films for the first time. And we are doing a June 19th, Juneteenth celebration at Tampa Theatre. So this episode of Loose Framing is being filmed a few months before, but when this episode comes out, all information should be on tampatheater.org. So please,
And
if
I had to look at the camera on
reach
that
out to us.
Yes, please. It will be there. You want to be there. June 19th. It's really going to look like Hollywood here in Tampa. I'm excited for it already. And we're March? I'm not trying to give away the time frame we're filming this, but too late.
It's okay.
Spoiler.
They know. We
I've
do
been
this all
giving
the
spoilers
time.
all this the whole session. So might as well not stop now. So, but we're really looking to bring both Tampa and St. Pete together. We will have work in this as Dreammakers Productions. We also are teaming with some other Tampa filmmakers as well to bring again Tampa and St. Pete together. And really we call this the joining of the Howard Franklin. And so that's the one bridge that you have to cross, to get over into Tampa. I mean, there's the Gandy Bridge, but Howard Franklin is the main one. It's the main vein to get us into the pulse of both of those cities.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse, right? And we're bringing them together for the better. And the biggest thing that I'm super excited about is the fact that we really get a chance to showcase just how big this film community is, and just through the support that we're going to gain and garner through the doing this Juneteenth screenings is really going to showcase the level of talent that we have here. It's going to highlight the fact that there is a thriving industry here and that there are plenty of opportunities for people to really, 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 really get some good experience in being a part of this industry. I tell people all the time who are wanting to start out in this, if you've had aspirations to be in this industry and you want to level up, well, the first thing you have to have is a resume. And how are you going to build that resume without experience? And indie films is one of the best ways that you can begin to get your experience up, and build the discipline to be able to know what it takes to do this work, because this is not easy work. There's a lot of early mornings, late nights, early mornings, in this work. There's a lot of sleepless nights in this work. You have to have a lot of patience in this work while you're waiting for it to be your turn to do your thing. There's a lot of study analysis that has to go, especially from an actor's perspective, to understand that in film, it's all about the face. And your face has to be able to do a lot of things in order to portray the correct emotion for us to feel and be with you as your character throughout the storyline. And so, having a really big independent industry, I think, especially here, is the perfect training ground to build the next A-list actors that are going to hit Hollywood, that's going to hit, Atlanta, that's going to hit New York. And when I say Hollywood, I mean California. But and then with that, we're creating Hollywood for ourselves. You look up and look at the origin stories of Hollywood. It really started from indie filmmakers. It was indie filmmakers that, said, as the transition from radio to movies now with no sound, just music with no dialogue, to now all of a sudden it's got dialogue and things of that nature, as this started to build, people started getting their own ideas on how do we cultivate, this and make it, better, or come up with cooler ways to showcase this level of artistry. And as they discovered those ways, more people picked up on it and they built their own little network of, community.
Yeah.
And from that community came up with the standard of how to do this level of work. And, and then you had 2 guys who said, well, I see what this community is doing. And a lot of communities won't let you in, especially once, they have their own way of doing things and you come in with newer ideas or different ideas. And they're like, no, that's not how we do it over here, And then you get those guys and they say, well, you know what? East Coast is saturated because the East was Hollywood. And they say, you know what? Let's go west. Let's go as far to the other side and let's do our own thing. And guess what they did? They went way to the other side, found the hills of Hollywood and did their own thing. And then they started building a community of people that started adopting their way of doing it. And then boom, you get Hollywood. And so here we are, independent filmmakers. We're in the same place to where we can create our own Hollywood, just off of the networks that we form, and we don't have to wait for someone to give us permission to be able to showcase our work amongst ourselves and be contributors to the advancement of the work, because that's what happened. People who had certain skills to do certain things saw these other people doing all these different types of movies and says, you know what? I like the way they do this. I want to be a part of that. Let me help you do this. I'm great at sound. So guess what? Now this movie that had the potential, somebody saw the potential and now boom, the sound just got better. So now the movie's already improved because you got better sound quality. Then you got somebody who knows how to work the camera really well that gets attracted to this work, or they're attracted to the director who's directing the work or some element of it. And now they're like, you know what? I want to help make this better. So then they become a part of the work. And, and then once you start getting the money behind it to where people can now comfortably do this work, oh, guess what? You've just created industry. And so anyway, I can go on and on and on.
Well, that's a really strong thing to end on. I really appreciate the way that you broke that down. I'm going to make that a clip all on itself because I feel like a lesson was just learned by me.
I love the idea of we don't have to wait. And I think that's such an important thing to remember, whether you're writing or acting or you want to do a film festival. You don't have to wait. You have to write to be a writer. You have to act to be an actor. Yeah. So through some of these fantastic resources and some of the other resources that we have in Tampa Bay, there are avenues to getting involved. You do not have to wait.
You don't.
So you got to make it.
Yeah.
Make it and they will come.
Yes.
Build it and they will come.
Build it and they will come. And I tell people all the time, if you aspire to be anything, whatever it is, put it in your everyday conversation and watch the universe come to you.
Yeah.
Manifest it.
You manifest it. It's been too many times I've been in an elevator and I've just said hello to a person. And from there,
I saw you do it today.
Yeah.
On your way here.
Yeah. and from a lot of those conversations, I've met so many people that are high level execs in like Sony and Paramount and things of that nature, all because I met their sister in an elevator. Yeah. And had I kept my mouth closed and not even said hi, I'd have never gotten the opportunity to where in my phone I have their numbers. Like, hey, give him my number. Have him call me. We were looking for somebody that fits his description. And you get the bypass of all those people that are auditioning for this role because the sister called the brother. And you get this warm introduction and they're like, wow, we're looking for this person. And my sister just called me with the person. And then once they meet you and you truly match what they're looking for,
the rest is history.
Right. The rest is history. And I've had so many great opportunities to be involved deeper, to be able to bring this back home and add it to, the level and quality of what we're doing here in the building up of our festivals and things of that nature, from just that simple thing. Putting it in my everyday conversation and watching the universe work.
Well, you are a connector and you are one of my favorite champions of our industry. And I really appreciate all of your time and energy and sharing all your stories today. But before we wrap this up, I want to know, where can people find out more about you, your social media handles or your website or maybe some of your projects?
All right. There's a lot of them.
Maybe just use social media then.
Yeah. The main one is my personal is Amazing Cran. That is AMAZNCRAN. Amazing Cran spelled funny. That's all my social media handles. If you don't find me that way, if you type in Cranstan Cumberbatch, I guarantee you're not going to find very many other than my cousin Benedict.
I was going to ask, but I'm sure you get that question a lot.
I do. And it really, it truly, I mean, there's a long story behind it, but yes, we are related. There's no coincidence that Benedict is an actor, writer, producer, director, and that I too am all of those things. It's in the bloodline. And it is my government name, thanks to my parents. I did not have to make up, a stage name. I was already birthed it. Like Benedict, he was
a strong
birthed
name.
it. Yes. So, and the funny thing about it, and I guess we can maybe end on this, but Cranstan means man of noble character. And my last name Cumberbatch, or our last name Cumberbatch, means strong presence.
Wow.
And so,
nothing explains you better
than
your own name.
Yeah, nothing.
That's amazing.
And when I learned that, it really made a lot of sense, and it really helped shape how I carry myself and things of that nature. But it also makes a lot of sense because in order to be in this industry, especially being in front of the camera, you have to have a strong presence. You have to have a sense of confidence about you in order to be able to handle the level, the weight of this work. Because this is not a thin-skinned industry. This is a thick-skinned industry. You got to have a lot of thick skin to be able to maintain and really stand strong to the criticism, judgments, because you open yourself up to that. The minute you start displaying your talents, you're already putting yourself out there to be criticized. And you got to look at that number of likes versus the number of not likes, and really weigh the balance of that to see, okay, how do I shape myself from there? So, so with that, understanding and knowing who you are, knowing what your name means, and really taking value in that has really shaped me and how I've been able to manage my career.
Well, I am inspired. Are you inspired, Hilary?
Yeah, I want to start writing. I want to start acting, and
I'm ready to be in front of the camera. Not that we're not right now, but I mean on my own time.
Yeah.
Hey, but the fact that y'all are doing it right now, even in this podcast capacity, you are a character. You are a different version of yourself than you would be off camera. Although it's kind of similar, the same, but still there's a certain persona that you have to portray when you're in front of that camera.
Yeah, when the lights are in your face.
Yeah, when the lights are in your face, yes, that lightning. But yeah, so with that, it only extends from there, and it's just a matter of learning of what type of person you're being in front of the camera that you know who you adjust to in that capacity. And that's why you have a director. Director is supposed to mold and shape you into the version that needs to be in front of the camera. So
and that's why you see directors working with the same actors over and over again, because they have that relationship already and that trust built.
And it makes it a lot easier to get the work done. And end of the day, it is about who you know. And which is why it's important to network. And that's a whole nother podcast topic.
That's part 2.
Yes.
You should come back for part 2. I feel like we have more to say, but
there's so much more. I mean, like I said, this has been a loaded topic podcast. Especially for me, because there's just a lot to unpack.
People are going to have an opportunity to meet you in person at the Juneteenth event. So seriously, check out tampatheatre.org.
When Hollywood comes to the Tampa Theater, you need to be there on the red carpet, because it's definitely going to be a red carpet to be on. I'm super excited for it. I can't express the thanks enough for giving us the opportunity to partner with you in bringing this whole thing together, and it's going to be a good time. I can't express it enough. It's going to be a good time, and the work that's going to be shown on screen is really work to be proud of.
Excited about it.
And
thank you.
Yes, so get your dresses and suits ready.
Yep.
'Cause, yes,
Time to dress up.
Yes, time to dress up and just, yes.
Well, thank you again, Cranstan. This is the end of our podcast. So if you're watching or listening, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. That was a great episode. I don't know about you, but I am feeling like I want to take on the world. I have so many story ideas, and I'm like, yeah, he's right. I should make that.
Yeah, there's so much resistance sometimes to just getting started, but he really did make me want to like sit down and actually work on something and like build something instead of just like thinking about it and talking about it all the time.
He's very motivational. And if you look him up online, that's what you're going to find. I mean, all of his podcasts and all of his public speaking events, he just leaves you with a feeling of hope and inspiration. And yeah, I think that was very evident in our conversation with him. I like the breakdown of how he was saying that he basically broke down how Hollywood was even invented in the first place, because it used to be on the East and they didn't like the way things were being done, so they set up in the West. And I'm thinking about that with Florida, and I see examples of this all the time, whether it be like Toronto and Canada's film scene, or Righteous Gemstones and Danny McBride's camp setting up in South Carolina because they found a community that is supportive and businesses that want filming there. And it's like, we're creating that and fostering that here in Florida and here in Tampa Bay, and it's just so exciting to be on the cutting edge of something like that.
Yeah, it's really, really cool to see how he's connecting people on both sides of the Bay, whether that's through production or a film festival.
One of the funny things that he said towards the end was the meaning of his name.
Yes, I'm very curious, Miss Brock, what your name means.
So the funny thing is what the meaning of my name is. His was like aspirational and, powerful.
Strong character, strong presence.
Yeah, like he's, a fighter. Mine, however, is my full name, believe it or not, is Jessica, and it is Hebrew for wealthy, which does not necessarily reflect the situation, monetarily speaking, all too well. And then Brock, which I like my last name, Brock. It means badger. So wealthy badger. It's a little less powerful than Cranstan Cumberbatch, but what's yours? I want to know yours.
So Hilary derives from the Greek word hilaria, which connected to like hilarious, obviously.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and then Webber is the German for weaver. So wonder if that explains my interest in comedy storytelling. Maybe, I don't know.
Comedy storytelling, weaving in and out of the punchlines. That makes sense for you. I feel like that fits very well.
Yeah,
it's making me second guess. Maybe wealthy badger does fit me, and I just don't know that.
Well, hey, this next year, think about how you're gonna like emulate that badger energy in 2024. Year of the badger.
My inner Hufflepuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I also loved how it was sort of a masterclass in storytelling a little bit. So I was curious to know, I have an answer to this because I'm petty about this situation. But what we didn't touch on inside the actual episode and conversation with Cranstan was books that were made into a series or a movie, and whether or not they were good and whether or not they were bad, and why we feel that way. Why we feel, obviously if you're reading a book when you're growing up, you're attached to these characters and you're growing up with these characters. And no, I'm not talking about like Harry Potter only, but that is like a very good example of like some of the things that were chosen to be in the movies were not in the books, and what they chose and what they didn't choose. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions about that. But do you have a book that comes to mind for that?
Sure. Have you ever seen Everything is Illuminated?
I have not. I don't know what that is.
It's a book by Jonathan Safran Foer, and Liev Schreiber actually adapted the book. It was his directorial debut. It stars Elijah Wood and Eugene Hoots, who's the lead singer of Gogol Bordello. But it's an epistolary novel about this Jewish character who visits Ukraine to sort of rediscover his family's history and connect with them. He thinks of himself as a collector, and so he's now going to collect those memories and just be more connected to it, basically.
Okay.
And so the book is a series of letters between him and his translator that he meets when he arrives in the Ukraine, who is not Jewish, and who actually in some ways is sort of anti-Semitic, accidentally sometimes, but like with his language, he really doesn't know any better. But then the book, these letters are also interspersed with scenes from the past. And so the movie, like how do you do an epistolary novel in movie form?
Yeah.
You really had to like change some of these things to get it into a format that worked. But the movie is actually surprisingly tender and sentimental and funny at the same time. So he did a really fantastic job of taking this intimate and unique tone from the book and still being able to capture it on screen. So I feel like that's an example of something that was done well versus like when we were talking earlier about like Game of Thrones, where I really was like by the end, the last season.
Did you read the books?
I didn't start reading them until after the show started. So I had a very different relationship with like what I think should happen, what I expect should happen.
Yeah.
It definitely was like a letdown. So I like when it goes well. I think everything is illuminated and is an example of a novel that gets adapted into a really fantastic film, and freaking nobody's seen it, and I don't know why, because it's so good.
It's on my list now because that sounds amazing.
The soundtrack's amazing.
Elijah Wood
It's
too.
basically
what
like
year was it made?
I want to say like 2002.
Okay.
But it's a beautiful movie. The soundtrack's incredible. It has music from like Gogol Bordello and a bunch of other like Eastern European artists. But what about you? Tell me about what book and movie you've.
Well, speaking from a proud Tampanian, and you know our horror stories with things being filmed in Georgia that take place here in Ybor City. Before I even was in the film space at all, I read a book called Live by Night by Dennis Lehane, and I used to tell everyone I knew that this was my favorite book because the writer is so captivating.
Yeah.
He's the same writer as Mystic River and Shutter Island, and the story takes you from Boston to Ybor City to Cuba, and it is amazing, and it's vivid in its descriptions and the characters. Like you're invested in these characters, and aside from the fact that it took place in Ybor City and was not made in Ybor City, like that is the pettiness part of me. But it really was something that I loved the story, and I just didn't appreciate the adaptation part of it.
It was a letdown.
I don't think that, that when Cranstan was saying like the story that you make in your head compared to what is actually on screen, I was like, oh, this is not what I had in mind at all. The outfits, I was like, I feel like this is Ben Affleck just dressing like Johnny Depp in the Rum Diary or something, like living out, you know, like what clothes do I look cool in or something. And the acting wasn't there and the writing, and I just, that's my hill.
It's sad when you feel like there's so much potential there, and then there's like money and time that gets invested into it, and then you know, it's not that I don't appreciate the work that goes into it in the process. Of course I do, but
and
when
at
you
first
have a
I was
vision-
excited. I was like, oh, Ben Affleck, he had just done, what was the movie he directed? It was his
Argo, maybe?
Argo, and I liked it. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but I liked Argo. So when I figured out that Ben Affleck was attached to Live by Night, I was like, oh, okay. But then it felt like a cheap vanity project or something like that. But one that went well for me is Silver Linings Playbook.
Oh, yeah.
That book is amazing. And if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it. I read it after the fact, but I still feel like the movie does such a good job at kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Expanding on the characters that the book presents and giving it such a unique flair. And I think that the director had a lot of say in that because of his own personal experiences with family members or himself with bipolar disorder. And I really, that movie and that book is very important to me. So I have another example of a book that literally the filmmakers put all of the dialogue in there word for word and somehow it worked, and that is No Country for Old Men. Have you ever read that book?
I have not, actually.
If you read that book, you're basically just reading the script, or the script is just a carbon copy of the book.
Yeah.
And Cormac McCarthy has some deep, disturbing stories out there, and No Country for Old Men, while it has some elements of suspense and thrill and violence and, all of these terrible things that go on to it. It's actually one of his more palatable stories. The one I'm thinking of right now is Child of God, which is a terrible, do not watch that. It's maybe watch it if you're, I don't know, whatever, but it's disturbing. And James Franco tried to do an adaptation of it, and it was unwatchable. But No Country for Old Men is one of my favorite stories by him. He also did The Road, which Viggo Mortensen is in that movie. Also really sad and heavy. But No Country for Old Men, is just and I think that it was probably a good choice to do it that way, because Cormac McCarthy fans are hardcore, you don't want to mess up his iconic novel. You know what I mean? So
we are going to have to start a Film Tampa Bay book club.
For real. We have him on our set. We have The Infiltrator. Live by Night is not on set right now. But we have that too. And Miss Peregrine. That was a book.
Yeah, some cool adaptations being filmed in the area.
Yeah. So. Oh, that's such a cool tie-in. But yeah.
All right. Well, I think that probably does it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Jesse, will you tell us where they can find us on social media?
Of course I can. We are Loose Framing Podcast. Stream us anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us at Film Tampa Bay.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.